Dobrodošli na kanal Televizije Studentski Grad. Gledate još jednu emisiju Diskurs. A večeras govorimo o mojoj omiljenoj temi, o putovanjima. Moj večerašnji gost je nakon pola godine putovanja raznim zanimljivim destinacijama u Beograd stigao sinoć. On je inače Kanađanin azijskog porekla i zove se Ivan Cheng. Ivan, hello.
Hello. Nice to be here.
Thank you for coming here. You're Ivan or Ivan?
Doesn't matter. You can call me Ivan.
Okay, it will be easier for me.
Yeah.
First of all, I have to say that I'm very impressed. I read your blog, and after all
no one does that.
Well, there are a lot of stories.
Yeah.
I read some of them. Of course, I didn't have enough time.
Yeah.
But how long are you traveling? I mean, in the first part, I said that you were traveling for half a year, but that wasn't your first journey.
Yeah. So for this trip, I resigned my job 16 months ago, traveled a month, moved home, rested 2 months, traveled for 5 months, rested for a month, and then this trip, so far it's been 6 months, and I'm ending in less than 2 weeks, so it's kind of exciting and scary at the same time. Yeah.
So this is like your lifestyle, it's not the exception, that you've been traveling for quite long.
Yeah, you can say it's my lifestyle for this year, but after I do intend to just settle down for a little bit. Maybe in a few years I'll do this again, but yeah.
Well, honestly, I have a problem. I don't know what to ask you first. I will just tell to our audience some of the places you have visited.
Sure.
Skoro sve zemlje u Africi, Evropi, Južnoj Americi, a neke od malo ekstremnih destinacija su Uskršnja ostrva, Antarctic, Nikaragva, Turkmenistan i svi ostali istani, tako da kažem. Maybe I should ask you for the beginning, how come that this is your first time in Belgrade? Because you've been to Macedonia, Bosnia, Croatia.
Because last time I was here, I wanted to visit him. My friend also named Ivan.
Our mutual friend who is behind the camera. He will help me with English in this interview.
Except he was in France at the time, so I visited him there, and I said, well, I'm not visiting Serbia if you're not there. And now he's there, or here, and so I'm here now. Yeah.
You arrived yesterday.
Yeah.
Do you have any impressions?
It's really pretty here. It's really beautiful. I did not see a single picture of Belgrade before coming here. I had no idea what it looked like, and it's really beautiful. There's these fortresses, and these really. I love your streets. They're very vibrant and alive, and also you've got all these cafes and stuff. So it's great.
You were lucky with the weather as well.
Yeah.
I mean, this is December, sunny December. So
yeah, it's quite nice.
Lucky. And what do you think about other countries, ex-Yugoslavian countries you visited?
Oh, those countries I was in. I was here 4 years ago, visiting those countries, and Serbia beats them all.
Really?
No, in terms of affluence, I'd say Belgrade it seems to be more populous and more developed and more modernized than actually any of those other cities I went to in the ex-Yugoslavian countries.
You want me to remind you where you've been? You've been to Kosovo?
Yeah, I've been to Kosovo. It's a bit of a passport issue here. That's why I'm here on a Hong Kong passport instead of my Canadian one. And also Macedonia and Croatia,
and Bosnia.
yes. And Bosnia, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that's quite a while ago.
Okay, then tell me, how long do you have to improvise due to some unpredictable circumstances? How often it happens to you to end up somewhere out of your plan?
It did happen on the last trip, but the good thing about traveling long term is I can just make it up as I go along. For something this long, it's not possible to plan every day, everything to see. I mean, if I was on a 2-week vacation, I might do that. But if I'm on the road for several months, then I just take it day by day. I think of the places that might interest me, and maybe I want to go there at some point, but I wouldn't plan out every single stop. It'd just be more like, okay, well, I'll start here, and I want to go there, but maybe I'll stop in some places in between, and I'll just make it up. If something happens and I need to go to a different country, then I'll just do that, because nothing is set in stone, maybe other than my flight back home to Canada. So, Yeah.
And how did it happen firstly? I mean, how did you decide, I want to do it, I want to do a long journey on my own?
This was a long time coming. So I met our friend Ivan in Singapore on exchange, and that was kind of the first time I traveled in general without a tour, just with friends. And I was always under the impression that traveling was difficult, that you had to go on a tour to see everything. But being with other people and then planning together, it seemed like it was just a lot easier than that. And then at first I started planning other trips and just having other friends with me, but eventually there came a time where I had free time, I wanted to travel, and I asked people, but no one was able to. And that was my first time traveling alone. And then I realized, well, this is actually quite easy, and I'm not so lonely because I'm meeting other travelers, I'm meeting locals, and because I don't have a friend with me, I feel quite compelled to talk to people.
Yes.
Just to socialize. And so that started, and then when I finally finished university, I had a job lined up, but thankfully they were willing to wait for me. They were willing to wait quite a few months, and so that was when I did my last trip to Europe and also South America, the same trip. And at first it was supposed to be just a month and a half with a friend, but when that friend dropped out, it just became me. And I started thinking of places I wanted to go, and then I saw on the map, oh, this is really close to this other place, and that's really close to this, and this, and this. And the 1 month became, 8 months since I had that time. At first I thought maybe I'll just travel a month and I'll go home and rest and then go to work, but instead it just became a really long trip. And yeah, and that built my confidence, and I can't really say confidence, it just made me realize it was pretty easy. So
yes. Actually, yeah. I wanted to ask you something about your self-confidence, because as a Canadian, I suppose it's not a problem to travel on your own to US, for example,
yeah.
or to Europe. But you've been to Nicaragua,
yeah.
To Africa, almost a lot of countries
yeah.
in Africa you visited as well. I mean, it's not the same when you go to some risky destinations.
Yeah, it started, the first trip I did alone was to India, so that was really overwhelming. Yeah, people tricked me a few times, but I enjoyed myself, and it was a lot safer than everyone back home was telling me, like, you're crazy, you're going to India alone. But then I went, and then I started meeting other travelers, and they're just talking about it really normally, and they gave me more tips on like just how to stay safe, and just be aware of your surroundings, and just don't go into a place without knowing anything at all. Like, maybe a political situation is happening, you should know about that before you go, or maybe you shouldn't go to certain areas. So other than that, it didn't feel really risky. And after I traveled to some of the more popular destinations, like South America and Europe are quite popular with young people these days, I started getting more curious about other areas of the world that I had never really heard about. And just for fun, I'd start reading about them, and then maybe I'd realize, well, hey, this seems like a safe place I could go to. Or maybe I'd go online, read up about it, and then I'd see that other travelers had been there, and it seemed safe, and then I would plan a trip. And that's the case also for some of the African countries that most people may never even have heard of. It's surprising to me. It was surprising to me when I started planning that a lot of people had actually been to these places, and they had tips. They had places that maybe you should try to go to because it's really interesting. They had places that, oh, maybe it's not worth it, or maybe it's not safe. And they had general guidelines, or not guidelines, but just in general what you should be more aware of. Like how you should bargain for things or negotiate for things, what you should be looking for in terms of places to stay or transport. And then when I would go to a place, I'd be kind of nervous at first. And then, maybe after 1 or 2 days, I would realize, oh, it's actually not that bad. It's quite easy. And what everyone mentioned online or to me in person, it's all true, and it just helped.
When it's about Africa, tell me, when you go there, is it possible to meet other people of your age in the cities and to connect with them? Like you can do it easily in Europe or in America, or it's not the case?
Do you mean other travelers or locals?
Travelers.
In West
like
Africa?
in hostels, in restaurants, or it's not like that?
In West Africa, other than in Accra, which is the capital of Ghana, it was actually quite hard to meet people. Most of the time I was alone, and I would just stay in guest houses instead. And the people of that country are so friendly anyway that you easily meet people on the street. And that sort of filled the void of needing to socialize. But yeah, while there are some hostels, it's pretty limited. And in general, in some of the less popular countries, you may just have to stay by yourself in a guest house.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we do not have a lot of time,
Okay.
or a lot of time, but I want to ask you
Okay, go ahead.
I wrote about some very interesting destinations. Yes, Turkmenistan. On your blog, it looks like a future, like it's not real. I mean, it's so developing, so bright, and so modern. I mean, is it really like that, or it was something in Photoshop?
That's the capital city, and the interesting thing about that country is that everything outside of the capital city is severely underdeveloped and being swallowed by the desert. That country is sort of like North Korea. They had a president that was obsessed with himself and built a bunch of statues of himself.
It's the one who has the golden statue.
Yes, all gold, all him, with really majestic poses as if he was the hero of a country.
Sorry, but not only that, the buildings looks quite new and the roads are...
Yeah, he was obsessed with that. So all the statues of him are in gold. All the buildings are made of marble. But you notice really quickly that there's no one in these areas of town. They're beautiful, but they're empty. Everyone just goes to the more regular looking places. Yeah.
The way you presented those destinations is very attractive. Now I really want to go there. I've noticed something as well in, I think, Uzbekistan.
Yes.
You took a photo of some abandoned, rusted ships in
Yes.
the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And what is it? Is it a miracle?
No.
What is it?
There used
and
to
I
be
saw the cow
Yeah.
just there.
There used to be a sea there, but they damaged their environment so much that the sea started disappearing. And now where you saw the ships was once a fishing port. Now the sea is 300 kilometers away because all the water has disappeared, and now it's just a desert with ships in the middle of it just standing there rusting, and cows and camels are walking by and taking shade. Yeah.
I also read that, I think I read correctly, that the people are very kind there. They were wonderful hosts to you.
Yeah, I was invited to a few homes. It's not actually that hard. It sounds very unlikely, but people there are really friendly, and they're very curious whenever they see a foreigner. So yeah, just being invited to a home, invited to a random wedding to people I didn't know, just being invited for meals. It was definitely like that in Uzbekistan and Iran, so very, very nice. Yeah.
When it's about Eastern Islands, you were cycling there.
Easter Island, yeah, I just rented a bike and just went around the island. It's so small.
No, it's really sound like heaven. I mean, if you cycle to those wonderful places.
It sounds like a luxury destination. It's some Pacific island with those beautiful, those moai, the heads that stick out of the ground. But no, you can go there, you can stay in a very humble place, and you can rent a bike and go around. And I found this for most places. You could think of it as a luxury destination, but there's always usually some cheaper way to do it, or a more humble, less resort-like experience. So yeah.
And I didn't understand about the dog that was following you. I mean, it was a stray dog?
No, I don't know. It was someone's dog, and it just decided to follow me on the bike. And it ran around the island, the whole island with me. And eventually I biked too fast, and I didn't see it anymore. But when I returned to town a few hours later, I ran into the dog again. So it was fine. Yeah.
And how did you end up to Antarctic?
I was in South America, and my plan was to do a trip from the southern tip to the equator. And at the southern tip, the town of Ushuaia in Argentina, it happens to be the port where tourists to Antarctica leave from. There are cruise ships that go. But because they tend to be expensive and there aren't so many people that go, there are a lot of vacancies available even several days before the departure of the ship. So when I arrived, I wasn't planning on going to Antarctica, but I saw some companies advertising last-minute deals for ships that were leaving a day later, 2 days later, and they discounted the price by over 50%. And I thought, well, it's still expensive, but this is much cheaper and than I ever would have thought, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime chance, so why not? Yeah.
And after all those experiences, do you think that the world is less big that we think it is?
Yes,
we think it is?
I have run into people that know friends of mine, strangers, you know, on the street, in hostels, in other places, at least 4 times now. It's a strange feeling when you're in, say, the capital of Iran, and you meet another traveler and you talk, and then within 5 minutes you realize you have a mutual friend. Yeah. The world is really small. So, and not only that, it's much safer than people realize. Not everyone out there is out to get you. So, yeah.
And any place you didn't like, you didn't enjoy, and you wouldn't want to come back?
Yeah, Dubai.
Dubai.
I only had to transfer flights there, but that was probably the one place that I didn't find people very friendly. There's things to do there, I'm sure, but or maybe I was unlucky and I had a bad experience, but I wasn't very happy with that. But by and large, every place I always find something to appreciate. So.
And do you have a favorite place?
Too many. If you have a more specific question, I could answer, but it's very hard to pick one.
Well, you're tempting me with my English language. Oh, well, I don't know, maybe the one you want to live out of the Canada?
Ooh. I remember just on instinct, just the moment I arrived, Spain would have been the one that I would love to live in. For this trip, or rather this year in general, since I've had multiple trips this year, the countries I would like to return to, maybe not live in, but just return to, would be Ethiopia and Kyrgyzstan. Yeah.
So not Turkmenistan, the one that I was impressed.
Turkmenistan is very difficult to enter. The visas are very difficult to get, and it took me 7 weeks just to get the visa, and they only gave me 4 days in the country.
Yes.
It's also very authoritarian. It's very interesting to see all of this, all of these statues and beautiful things that the dictator made, but it's a very repressive country. Yeah.
I want to tell to the audience the name of your blog. It's nolegrum.wordpress.com.
Yes.
Very nice blog.
Thank you.
Very nice stories and very nice photos. You do it on your own, or?
Yeah, it's just me. Yeah.
Okay. And how hard it is to write all those stories? Do you enjoy writing?
I love to write. I write because it's me. Admittedly, not that many people read my blog. It's meant for my friends and family or anyone who just happens to find it on the internet. But I write it mostly for myself so that in the future maybe I want to read about or just remember something that I saw before. And I write down all my feelings on the blog about a place that I've gone to, and maybe some of the things I've learned, especially about maybe some of the difficulties or some of the interesting solutions a country's come up with, or maybe the politics, or maybe the people, and so it's really just for me to remember. Yes. But anyone who happens to find the website's welcome to read and do whatever they like.
Tell me about the people you're meeting on the way. How different they are if you compare it about Europe, America, some more extreme destinations. I'm talking about native people. Like, do you have any preferences about the people?
I find that this is pretty cliche. You hear this a lot, but the people in poorer countries tend to be more friendly and kind. Despite having really little, they're always the first to offer you more, like come in for a meal or walk you around town for several hours and never expect payment. They'll guide you to places. They'll help you with any problem you have. They'll invite you for food and maybe introduce you to their friends and stuff. But by and large, almost everywhere I go, everyone's really kind and they're really happy to see visitors. It's just the places that never see visitors that are even more kind. So.
And what is your next destination?
Well, I'm going home really soon. I'm here to visit Ivan, and then I'm going to visit a friend in Austria, and then I'm flying back home. But there are many places I'd still love to go to in the future. Just Right now, I'm quite happy with all the places I've already been to. So rest a bit, enjoy home, because as fun as travel is, there's no place like home. Home is still really nice. So.
But if I'm informed correctly,
Yeah.
you're working in Boston.
I was working in Boston. I quit my job and then I started traveling, but I intend to move back to Canada.
You will be back to Vancouver.
Yes.
And what do you think, how long will you be able to stay at one place after all those experiences?
I definitely think at least a few years. Who knows? I would love to do a trip like this again. Not right now, but in the future, it'd really be great. There's so many places left to see, and there's so many places I would love to go back to.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm here in Belgrade in the winter. I'm visiting a friend. I know it's not the best time to be here, but I feel like, hey, I could come back here in the future too, right? Yeah.
At the end, I want to ask you maybe a bit cliche question,
Yeah,
but I
sure.
really want to know your experience about that. All the things you did on your journeys and everything you've been through, does it heal you somehow and affects you in a good way? Like, can you feel like you're changing, like you're becoming, I cannot say better, but different, like you're growing as a person? Because you live out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, I don't really notice it when I'm in a place, but maybe when I've left a place and then I look back and remember things, or maybe people are asking me questions and then I realize, oh yeah, I did all of that. Wow, that sounded more difficult than I remember it being. And actually in my daily life, it's like if I run into any sort of problem, I would think, well, it's better than being stranded in the middle of nowhere, not really knowing where to go or who to talk to because I can't speak the local language. So everything just feels a little easier when I think about it, when I think about all the other stuff that I've had to go through while I'm traveling. And when I'm traveling, I don't think about it either. It just, something happens, and then I think, well, okay, now this happened, I have to deal with it. And I get through that just fine. So if I ever have problems in my daily life, what's the point of just worrying so much when I can do the same thing? Yeah.
Actually, I have one more question.
Sure.
Did you ever feel like you had enough? Like you have no more resources of adrenaline? Like everything you see seems, you're indifferent?
Absolutely. I think that happens especially if I'm traveling too fast and seeing too much. And in that case, I just slow down. I don't have to see everything. I have the rest of my life, and even if I might never come back to a place or go to another place, I still really appreciate that I've been to so many already. Or, yeah, just all the experience I've had already. It's more than enough. I'm satisfied now. Sure, I would love to travel to many other places, but I'm at the end of this trip, and I'm actually very satisfied to be going home. I've experienced enough, and I would like to slow down, stop for a while, and just absorb it all. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Honestly, this was the first time for me that I'm doing an interview in English language
Oh,
in this
really?
studio, and I'm here for
Never
ages.
noticed. You're doing a good job.
Well, enjoy the following days in Belgrade.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for coming to the show.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Hvala svima vama koji ste večeras gledali emisiju Diskurs. Vidimo se ponovo sljedećeg utorka.